talk to you about hybrid events.
Better to unmute first, isn't it? I'm just going to share my screen here. Good. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm going to present there. Can you all see that? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks very much for inviting me to speak. That's probably hybrid events is the thing that we get asked about so much. For what we'll cover today are the bits that Alex just alluded to, but intros. I'll explain about hybrids and the main benefits and why we're seeing that, but more importantly, why kind of some tricks or tips to help you figure out whether you should do in-person, virtual, or hybrid. Then we'll go on to Kathy, who'll talk us through the Histiocyte Society and their choices and why they've gone hybrid, how that worked, and the learnings along the way. We'll talk about a few of the challenges. Then I'll go into kind of more practical kind of engagement ideas, the choice of platforms out there, because there are so many choices and it's like difficult to pick out what is right for you. The advantages of hybrid, and then some key takeaways and Q&A. For those of you that are familiar with Slido, I've put a poll a bit further down so you can actually ask your questions as we go in the Slido poll. So first of all, yeah, so Alex said, I've been doing events for 25 years. Since the start of the pandemic, we've done about 500 virtual events, virtual and hybrid. And Kathy has kindly volunteered to come and speak about her experiences on it. So we went pre-pandemic, of course, we were doing these kinds of things. This is actually the Event Organisers Network a couple of years back, or just pre-pandemic, where we'd all get together. We'd do all sorts of kind of fun events, get together, and then suddenly, of course, the pandemic hit, and then no more in person. When completely, no more in person, and we had to flip completely to virtual. That caused a lot of learning, and everybody kind of defaulted to Team and Zoom and Google Meets and all that stuff, which then got a little confused between a meeting, which is, this is fine, Team, Zoom, etc. for meetings, but not really for events or complicated events. And then as time went by, production value, got a bit higher. You guys might know Floating Harbour. I did a ton of work with them, or Mel, we did TEDx together, or Thomas, and I used to run some events together. And I adopted a platform called Hopin, who, in my view, took all the key elements of an event, as in the main stage, breakout, expo, networking, engagement. It kind of brought it all nicely together. So I just picked Hopin back in February 2020, and they went from next to nothing to an $8 billion business. It was absolutely incredible, and they continue to grow. But I'll talk a little more about that. So my bugbear about Zoom and Google Meet and Teams and all that stuff, those are for meetings, absolutely no problems whatsoever. But when you're trying to produce a decent production level event, they're not suited for that. We have so many more event platforms to choose from. These are just a few examples of the ones that we've worked with. We specialize mostly in Hopin, but we've done some AirMeet, Cvent, Flux. That's more 3D. And EventsX actually is a new one that's coming out, which is quite interesting. So in terms of this demo event, so I've created one for you guys to go and play around. So this is on Hopin, and I'll share the link in there. And if we've got time, I can actually walk you around the platform if you want to, and just show you how it works. But basically, you navigate down the left of the page. The content of whichever area you're in is in the middle, and then you engage on the right of the page. But I created kind of a little expo area. I created some networking, some sessions, some breakouts, etc. So you can see this is far more elaborate and more functionality than Teams or Zoom or things like that. Oh, hang on a minute. My daughter's trying to call me, sorry. Click. There you go, sorry days. Talk later. Anyhow, so now what's happened with the market? So of course we went to 100% in person down to 100% virtual during the pandemic, and now it'll be interesting to see what you guys feel, but we see from our perspective about 70%, 75% of events are now back to in person, depending on the business sectors, and every sector actually chooses their different things, and there's some key factors which actually Kathy will touch on a bit later to dictate kind of which industry sectors are choosing for for different reasons. So now, of course, large conferences are taking place, which is great. This hybrid is becoming increasingly popular. We're seeing that. So this was up at Confex just post-pandemic, and you could see, like in this layout, kind of the silent disco that we see a lot more. You see these two side screens. So that was for remote speakers to dial in, so the audience could see them, but you wouldn't have this infinity tunnel happening with the main screen, which we sometimes see at events. But anyway, the production value just built and built. We'll touch on production in a bit because that's a big consideration when you're looking at hybrid. And then you can get some much more elaborate stuff. This was an event that we supported in Munich, and they had the proper kind of TV, studio cameras in there, full production desk for a couple of thousand people in person and a couple of thousand online. So, I mean, those are, really interesting, great team, and amazing event. Now, what is hybrid? There's a simple definition. A hybrid event is one that combines an in-person event with the digital components tailored to each audiences, because you're dealing with two audiences, so that they can get best benefit. So both audiences can get best benefit. So you've got your classic, in-person. We know in-person events, we know all that. That's not a problem. Over the last 3 years, we've done a lot of learning in the virtual space, and the hybrid is just bringing those two worlds, those event worlds together. So we have two audiences that are around that common theme of their event, but they have different demands, different requirements. So some examples: we've done hybrid before, we just didn't regard it as hybrid. Some examples of that, like the question time, where there's a studio audience but interacting with questions coming in through Twitter, BAFTA awards with live commentaries or people dialing in, children in need, football matches and commentaries and things like that. So hybrid has existed, we just didn't really use it for events. Hybrid is not just streaming your content out there. It's not recording stuff and pushing it out or webinar style. But it is bespoke content for each of your audiences, like I said before, around that communal theme of your event. So that enables audiences to do different things, but to learn, share, interact with one another, interact with the speakers. And it's tech that enables that. So in-person, hybrid, or virtual. So there are 9 points here. I'll fly through them, but of course, like a normal event, hybrid, in-person or virtual, they're still events, and you've got to regard them as events. So shall I do that? And then that's probably, does that work better for everybody? Maybe a bit bigger. So you have to consider your audience, what they want. Kathy will touch on that, but you've got to be, ask your audience, what do you want to do? Do you want in person? Do you want virtual? Do you want a bit of both? So, different sectors will be doing different things. And then you have to ask, what you can afford. What does your audience want based around the objectives of your events? So there's some that I don't know what that was, but there's someone that's not muted, but that was interesting. Anyhow, cost implications. So hybrid can be really good, but there's some maths you've got to do around that. So to give you an example, we supported a company called Twilio. They're a big kind of tech giant from Silicon Valley. They decided to cut back from 2,500 in person to just 500 in Vegas. So that was a massive saving for transport, flying everybody to Vegas, accommodation, food. all that stuff that goes in there, including waste. And they reduced that to 500 with the rest of the 2,000 people dialing in. So that was a huge cost saving for them. So you've got to, weigh up how many people are coming to your events. Is it worth doing in person? How far are they coming from? And all those considerations. There's a ton of tech out there to do so many things. And it's important to have a good understanding of what is needed to meet the objectives of your event. Sometimes simpler is way better than super complicated things, because then people just step away. But there's some amazing tech in there for the audience. So like us, we're on Zoom at the moment. In a moment, I'll share the Slido, so you can ask some questions. You can do it on your phone. You can do it through the screen. I'm sorry, my daughter again, she's chasing me for something. In terms of engagement, you've got to consider how your audience will interact. So that means interact with the speakers, interact with the audience, that's all the in-person audience, all the virtual audience, and how both those audiences will interact with one another. So certainly that's part of making a plan. I'm really sorry, my daughter's really going for it. Give me 1 second, sorry. Sorry about that. Where were we? Down here. Here we go. Sorry. Seem to have zoomed in for some reason. I don't know why. Look. Here we go. Sorry, there you go. Logistics. Kathy knows all about the logistics. The first event we supported Kathy on was in Stockholm, and there was so much scheduling, transport, accommodation, travel for all the people. So that was just the in-person logistics. And there's also the logistics of looking after the virtual audience, which is also another important part, of course, of your events. Then you've got to consider the efficiency, and by that I mean of time. Is it easier for all of us to click on a button and be in this event now to just learn quickly about that? Or do we all go to Bristol and go and meet and get a venue sorted out and all come together? So there's a time factor that comes into it. There's accessibility, and by that is the ease of reaching people through the screen. There's also the ease of getting hold of your speakers. For example, Kathy's dialing in from the States. That would not have been feasible for us to go, oh, Kathy, let's fly you over to the UK. Kathy's got to have the time and we've got to have the money to fund that. So you've got to weigh up all these things. Just now, we have so much more access to speakers all around the world to do that. And of course, there's the on-demand function of events and recordings that's available. Environmental impact, of course, we've got less waste. It's far more sustainable, and so many benefits. I'll touch on those a bit later. And then lastly, your event production, so your AV partner and the virtual event partner. And those are really important points, those. For the AV, if you're going to have AV for your audiovisual production for your event, then to add the virtual element of that is actually straightforward. You've got all the kit, you've got the camera, you've got the staging, you've got the comfort monitors, you've got all the bits that you need. So actually just pumping that out to a virtual platform, that's fairly straightforward. And then on top of that, you need the production team for the virtual audience to look after those guys. So that's where Kathy and her team and us work together during that event in both in Stockholm and then in Memphis as well. So on that note, Kathy, shall I hand over to you for you to talk us through this? If you just go next slide or anything like that, and I'll try and I'll keep up with that.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much to Franco and to Alex and to the Bristol Fundraising Group for inviting me today. I'm really excited to be here and to be able to tell you a little bit about my organization and my experience with my first hybrid meeting and also then my second. My name is Kathy Wisniewski, and I am the Executive Board Administrator for the Histiocyte Society. This is a membership organization of about 250 physicians and scientists from all over the world. And they are committed to finding better treatments and hopefully eventually a cure for this disease called histiocytosis, which is actually an umbrella term for about 6 different diseases, and all of them are very rare. I'm also the co-author of a book called The Unashamed Guide to Virtual Management. So that's really to say that going into this, I thought that I knew what I was going to be doing. And I found out that I didn't, but that turned around. We could go to the next slide. Okay. Oop. Okay. So
Did you want this? Sorry, did you want the previous slide, Kathy, or did you want the
yes,
map of the
previous
world?
one, if you could go back one.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So as I mentioned, this is a group of 250 members currently. We're always recruiting for new members. And my role as the Executive Board Administrator is to basically run the organization from an administrative standpoint. This was a decision that we made many years ago, was to do this for this group voluntarily so that the physicians and scientists would be freed up to focus on the research and not have to worry about running an organization as well. And when I say we are actually partner organizations with the patient and family group called the Histiocyte Association. And they are committed to outreach and education to patients and families about this disease. So that is actually who I work for. I do a couple of things for them. I administer their research grants program. We actually grant research projects. And I also act as the podcast producer and host. We started a podcast a couple of years ago, and I run that. So it was this group that, like I mentioned, is who I actually work for, but most of my responsibility falls with the Histiocyte Society on a voluntary basis to them. Okay, next slide. And this, what we have is just a quick snapshot of where our members are located. As you can see, they are from all over the world, and this will become important a little bit later, but you can note on this slide that these are our members, where we do have many non-members that attend our meetings as well, but this is just where our members are located all over the world. Next slide. So when we hold our annual meetings, we've been doing, this year will be our 39th annual meeting. So we've been doing this almost 40 years. And some of the objectives that we have, I believe that obviously all meetings that are held are important in their own way. But one thing that I think makes meetings like ours critically important is the fact that holding meetings like these literally saves lives, and particularly the lives of children, which is who are mostly affected by these groups of diseases. So this is really important to us, because what the doctors do at these meetings is they share and discuss and they debate the latest research, because science doesn't always agree. So there's a lot of debate that happens, a lot of collaboration between these physicians and scientists from all over the world. They do get together and talk about projects that they're thinking about doing, and look for collaborators on those projects. And then they also discuss the future in the field and the general direction for each one of these different diseases. So it's really important that they have what they need and that they're able to continue to meet. So here is a list of some of the meetings that I've been involved in. I started with the organization in 2008, but 2010 was my first meeting that I attended. And here's a list of all of the meetings that we've had. And then COVID hit. And obviously everything stopped. Now, at that time, we had a brand new president. Our presidents have 3-year terms. So he had just started his presidency in the fall of 2019. And he was trying to figure out what we should do, because obviously we couldn't meet in person. So that year, we decided that we would just do several 1-hour Zoom webinars, and we asked each of our 3 specific disease committees to host one. So that was all we did for 2020. And then in 2021, when we realized that we still would not be able to meet in person, we decided that we would hold our first fully virtual meeting. And this was really amazing in its own ways because it gave them the ability to still come together and to meet, but obviously it was still lacking the camaraderie that this group has come to know and love. And our meeting is very much like a family reunion. We have a lot of the same people that attend every year. We get some new people, and then some people retire or stop coming, but the core group is basically the same every year. And our attendance is right around 225. Like I said, it's a very rare disease, so it's not too many people. But we wanted to remain consistent by having a fully virtual meeting. And like I said, it was very successful. They enjoyed being able to still come together and meet and learn and carry on with their work, even though we weren't meeting in person. And we love the ability to have like a small expo area, and also most of our delegates were able to attend no matter where they were in the world. And we were able also to use another platform to give people the opportunity to basically be in a room and talking with one another. So you could kind of move your circle over to a group of people and have a conversation. And as you moved away, the sound would go down like you were actually walking away from them, and you could move to another group. So that was really cool and really fun. And we were able to keep that element of networking and collaboration. But for 2022, finally, we were able to meet in person again. But because of the success of our fully virtual meeting, the board decided that they wanted to do their first ever hybrid meeting. So we talked with the people in Stockholm, and we decided that this is what we wanted to do, and they were going to help us because I was unable at that time to do site visits myself. So we wanted to get them on board as well. And these are some of the objectives that we had for that meeting. Again, just to maintain the continuity and be able to return to a proper annual meeting while also giving people who couldn't attend the opportunity to do so. And those colleagues were unable to attend for a couple of reasons. Some are from countries that still weren't allowing travel. Some, it was their institutions said, you can travel, but we're not going to pay for it if you travel now. You have to wait another year. So there were various reasons why people couldn't attend. But we also wanted to encourage more people to attend, because we had a lot of people in our virtual meeting in 2021 that were new to us because it was virtual. So we thought, okay, we'll have our core group, and we'll have a new group of people as well. And obviously, the most important part is we wanted to be able to give our physicians and scientists the opportunity to still receive the education and the knowledge that they needed for their continued research and treatment of these diseases. And of course, foster their engagement and participation with our virtual audience. And it was a really good time. And so on the next slide, like I said, it's very much like a family reunion, and our delegates just really missed each other. So here, what we have is, it's moving really slow. There we go. We were back together once again, and this is our last one standing photo. We hold an annual banquet every year. It's the last night of the meeting. And we always take this photo at the end of the night just to show how many people were able to last the entire banquet, dancing our little hearts out. And if you click again, there you go, you'll see my hand right there. I'm a bit on the short side, but that's me in the back there. I love being one of the first on the dance floor and the last to leave. So okay, next slide. So when we start talking about prep and tech and setup, I'm not afraid to tell you that when the board said they wanted to do a hybrid meeting, I was absolutely terrified. I just to paint a little bit of a picture, I'm really the only one that works for the organization. I do have a couple of people from our partner organization that come with me on site and help out, but all of the planning and prep is done by me. So it was absolutely terrifying to think of doing a hybrid meeting. And I remember being on our board call, and I literally said to them for the first time in 13 years at that point, I don't know if I can make this happen for you. And they kind of all gave a collective, you'll be fine. It'll just happen. It'll work out. So at that point, all the work began. And the first thing that I wanted and needed to do was to make sure that I knew exactly what the objectives were from my board. What was it that they were expecting? And I wanted to make sure that those expectations were very clear, because I knew it was likely I was probably going to run into some scenarios where, okay, this platform can do this, but not this, and this one can do that, but not this other thing. And so once we had our expectations clear, I started out on the research process to try and figure out, first of all, what platforms existed that did this, and then narrow it down to figure out what platform was the best for us. So that to me is one of the most important aspects of all of this, is to do your research and to figure out what is going to work for you. And I would also say one thing that I kind of didn't know in the beginning that I do know now is in researching companies, I would ask to be introduced to the event support team in advance, because these are the people that you're going to be relying on leading up to and during your event. So that was not something that I did in the research process, but luckily throughout the process, we came to learn about Hopin, and we came to learn about Frog events, and it turned out to be a very good thing. And Franco has been an amazing support to me and both of my organizations. So that's definitely an important thing to consider. Then we had to coordinate with our venues. We were actually using 2 venues for this particular event. We have a set of pre-meetings, and we try to utilize local hospitals or clinics or things like that. Typically, we can get those spaces for free if we have a doctor that works there, so that helps keep costs down. But we had that institution first in Karolinska in Stockholm. And then we moved the main meeting to the Grand Hotel in Stockholm. So we had 2 different sets of venues and tech support people and all of that. So it was interesting to try to kind of navigate that, because we had to talk to 2 different sets of tech people to get everything set up. And I think Franco would agree that one was much more knowledgeable than the other, and that made for a little bit of a challenge, but we got through it and we made everything work. But there is, that tech piece of it to consider when you are going to do a hybrid meeting. We did rent some extra cameras and some extra production in order to make it look very, very professional. And that was an extra line item on the budget that we weren't expecting it to be what it was, but it all actually balanced out in the end, and ended up being a very good thing for the quality that we were able to provide to our attendees. The next thing we did was we connected all of the necessary people to help coordinate these tasks. So I connected Franco with the tech team, both of the tech teams, and they were able to kind of communicate and figure out what was needed from each other, and get everything set up so that we were able to roll. And that was super, super helpful, because I really thought that I was going to have to know everything, and I didn't. I had a nice overview of everything. I knew what was going on, but I didn't need to know the ins and outs of everything, which was really, really helpful. Hopin also has StreamYard. I don't know if anybody's used that before, but it's very helpful to look very, very professional. They have the lower thirds with names. So as we had speakers come up, we could pop their name up to the lower third of the screen, and different, like the transitions and everything else just made it look very, very professional, very nice. And then when we got closer to the meeting, and then when I actually got on site in Stockholm, we did a lot of practice and rehearsing. For the Stockholm meeting, we didn't have any virtual speakers. All of our speakers were live at the venue. So we didn't have to practice that, but that is something that you would want to do if you had virtual speakers for a hybrid meeting. Now for setup, I would definitely encourage you, if you are going to do this, to lean on your event team, because they know what they're doing, especially if you work with someone like Franco, who is amazing. Franco and Korean, they just helped us navigate through this entire thing. And on a slide coming up here, I mentioned that at the last minute, we kind of decided to employ them to take care of our virtual community during the event. And that was the best money that I've ever spent, because I didn't have to worry about what was happening online. Franco and Kareem took care of that. So definitely something that I would, excuse me, encourage you to do as well. But we definitely had to lean on them. They knew what they were doing, and they made the entire process so easy, which is why I say to see if you can talk to the event team, the actual support team in advance. The next thing, or the first thing that I did in the platform, was set up the basics of the event, the time, the sessions, all of the graphics, things like that. And a really important point, I think, is to start early and work consistently. That way you're not kind of trying to take care of everything last minute. Okay, next slide. So in the end, we decided, obviously, that Hopin was the best platform for us. It had everything that we needed, and it was a nice balance between the cost and the functionality. We wanted to be able to have an expo center. We wanted to be able to engage our virtual audience and still be able to have replays and have sessions and stages and all of that. And it turned out that this was the best platform for us. But again, I will stress that it's not only about the platform, it's about the support team, because they are the people that you're going to be relying on during your event and leading up to. Then again, making sure that you understand your event and your needs, and that everybody that is a stakeholder in this is on the same page as far as expectations. Again, the virtual support was the best money we spent. It was something that we didn't kind of realize until the very end that we needed, but then it was there for us, and Franco and Karine were able to be there to talk to our virtual attendees and walk them through any questions that they had, or then they were able to get feedback from them that, you know, something, there was no sound or things like that, and they were able to then communicate them to us. And it was super helpful, and it made our meeting run absolutely seamlessly. It's also really important to have lists. We had a couple of lists going. One was provided by our support team, by Franco and Karine. These are all the graphics you need. These are the sizes that you need, all of those kinds of items. The lower thirds and, you know, logos and Expo Center, they were able to help us with all of that. And then, of course, the internal checklist that we had as far as what we wanted the platform to provide, and the different offerings that we needed in it, such as these expo spaces and our organizational information that we wanted people to be able to access quickly. And then again, blocking the time to get the work done was critical, and something I'm working on even more this year. So I put here a little bit of our attendee feedback. And what's interesting is that this is the same question for both sets of attendees. This is the virtual attendee feedback. And we asked them what was their preference for future meetings. And 75% of them said we want to continue with hybrid meetings. And 25% said, I hold the meeting in person, but just have pre-recorded versions. But 75%, it was overwhelming majority, wanted hybrid meetings. And then if you look at our in-person attendees, and again, the hybrid didn't affect them at all. They were there in person, but 52% said, yes, let's continue to do hybrid meetings. So that was just a really interesting data point to me when I looked at this. Okay. Next, I wanted to share just some challenges and key learnings. First of all, you don't know what you don't know. So obviously, when I started researching hybrid meetings, I did what we all do. I went to Google and I went to YouTube, and I just started looking at anything I could find about planning a hybrid meeting and how that works. And one of the things that I learned is that it is every single resource that I tapped said the same thing, that it's like planning two separate meetings, and you have to treat it that way. As far as timing, as far as engagement, it's really two separate things that, like Franco showed in the graphic that he showed, where the hybrid comes together in the middle with the in-person and the virtual attendees. So just keep that in mind. It does take a little bit of research, but if you have a good team, that makes that process all the much easier. There were the additional AV costs that we weren't expecting upfront, but it was fine, and it produced a very professional looking meeting. The get-in and testing at the venue, that was a big important point once I got there, to connect in person with my tech team and then connect with Franco and his team, so that we could make sure that everything was tested, everything was working right, we had everything we needed, and that made everything run a lot more smoothly. And then maintaining virtual participant engagement. This was a big challenge because this was the first time we had done this, and it was definitely something that Franco very lovingly and gently said, don't forget your virtual audience, don't forget your virtual audience. So we did have to kind of keep reminding our moderators and our speakers to try to pull the audience in, just, even just saying something like, oh, we have a whole virtual audience, just want to say hello and welcome to the meeting. Those kinds of things make a big difference in the experience that your virtual attendees have. So the key learnings that I had were to start early and make sure that you do your research and have all of your expectations and everything that you want to accomplish with your meeting, to plan accordingly and to block the time to get the things done that you need to do. Again, hybrid events are like 2 events in 1. You want to recruit a good team, focus on ways to engage the virtual participants, educate your speakers early on, again, about engaging with the virtual audience, because it is so important and it does change their experience completely. And you want to not skip rehearsals, and the right platform and partners makes all the difference. Then there we go. So we did it again. This platform, we had such a successful experience that when our partner organization, the Histiocyte Society, we did a patient and family conference in Memphis in November, and we used the platform again, and we asked Franco to help us once again, and this was a really wonderful meeting as well. So will we continue to offer hybrid meetings in hybrid format? Yes, we will. This is something that I don't think is going away for us. We love it so much. We love being able to extend as far as we can to the world. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning, to us, this is about saving lives. So if we can reach more people by doing things in a hybrid format, we're absolutely going to continue to do it. And so going forward this year, our meeting is going to be in Athens in October, and it is going to be a hybrid meeting. We've nearly chosen, we're on the last steps of choosing Goa, India for next year, and then 2025 and beyond. We don't know yet, but they will definitely be hybrid, that we know. And that, I think, was all I had. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. That's great. And really helpful just to share all this learnings, even from my perspective, kind of your mindset of what you're going through. I'm just going to go, oh, hang on a minute. Let's go in here. So there we go. We're going to fly through because I'm conscious of time. Just Kathy, if you've got anything to add or anything like that, or if people have got some questions, just to ask them. But we'll go through some of these key tips now. Sorry about the zooming in and out. My mouse is playing up. Couple of little things, simple things. Internet speed. They may tell you, oh, look, we've got super fast internet, but when you've got 1,000 people in the venue, just make sure it's super reliable. That's an important one. Access, Kathy touched on it, but the getting and then testing all the kit and all that stuff, you've got to consider those things. I made this point twice here for some reason, but the in-person audience takes time to get from A to B. The virtual audience just have to click a button. So you have to manage the timings of your event in that sense. I think in Stockholm, Kathy's like, oh, hang on a minute, I've got 10 minutes to get over there. And you're sprinting from one room to the other. And so you have to bear that in your timings. And so what do you do in this kind of those buffer times in between key elements of your event? So these are like simple things you've got to take into account. Engagement side of things, networking is really useful, like in person, but in virtual just works so brilliantly now. Gamification, put some games in there, some quizzes, some prizes. We've done things like not manhunt, what do you call it, treasure hunts, that's the one. Treasure hunts, to encourage people to go to different parts of your event. On the virtual side, we've used like DJs, illustrators that can kind of amplify the message that's being discussed in the room, but also that can be relayed to the audience. The treasure hunt I mentioned, and surveys, etc. So on the survey front there, you can scan that with your phone if you used it. In fact, I'll do it as well, and then with your camera, and that should open up a page for you, and then you can actually take part in the survey if you want to. But if you want to put some questions in the chat or just come on camera and ask your questions, please feel free to do so. There's some polls in there which I've got to present. There you go. So you should be able to see those polls now. That poll is activated. I'll activate all of them. Here we go. I'll put all of the polls up there. There you go. And then you can ask the questions in the Q&A. So where will we be in 12 months' time? Nobody knows, and it depends on different sectors. Depends on budgets, depends on where your audience is. It depends on what your industry sector is more used to. But Kathy, before the pandemic, they would never have considered doing hybrid because it just wasn't done. But now we've done all that learning. That is a real kind of amplifier for your organization, Kathy, and reaching out to more people.
Absolutely, definitely.
And some key takeaways. So for the virtual side of things, it increases your reach. So for the Histiocyte Society, that enabled them to reach more people and get the message out to more people, and with that comes a greater attendance. So more people, you've got more ways to engage with everybody. With reaching a bigger audience, that opens up more sponsorship opportunities, and getting more people involved. It also creates a ton of marketing content, recordings like you guys are doing at BFG, of recording stuff, sharing it with your membership, getting snippets, presentations, ideas. So that really does help. Cost saving, that's with a kind of caveat, because production also costs money. So it depends on the level of production that you're looking for. Green and sustainable, of course. You do get amazing analytics for when you're doing events. You know what the in-person people are doing, but for example, online, the dwell times, where they're going, the connections they're making, their areas of interest, the peaks and troughs of attendance and those kinds of things. So you get real insights into your event, which then helps you make your next event even better. Kathy touched on this, and thank you for your kind comments, Kathy. But it's mutual, we work really nicely together. We understood each other, we supported each other, and it's hard work. Events are hard work, but we love it. We really enjoy working with our clients. Flexibility, definitely. Make sure they experience. So Kathy made the point. If you're going to a venue, who's their production partner? Can you work with other people? Can you work with Frog? Can you work with your colleagues, or etc.? So make sure you've got the right partners in place, both in terms of AV, and they've done a hybrid, because it takes some level of understanding on a technical basis, but also who is going to manage the virtual element of it. So the production company, make sure they're experienced. And then finding the right platform that suits you. Kathy mentioned one about their networking. There's one called Spatial Chat, which is when you get closer, so you can use those kinds of things. And that's why we use Hopin, because it ticks so many of the boxes. And like a venue agency, if you've got to find the right venue for your event. So Hopin's not right for all events, but for me, it ticks a lot of boxes and covers so much. As there's tons of functionality, and you can turn things on and off as you wish. Hopefully, there you go. I can share the results there. Let me just see if I can do that there. Here we go. we can share those with you. If I go into here, where are they? Help if I find them, wouldn't it? Here we go. Oh, because I'm not displaying the results. That's why. It would help if I did that, wouldn't it? The results, there you go. So the results here. Are you able to see those results there? So 50% have not, a third have, and 17% have not yet created them. But that's just to show kind of the interaction that you can do online. In terms of questions, I'm just going to see if we've got some questions that have come in on there. Okay, so for virtual alone, I would recommend Hopin. I'm a certified agency. It's worked brilliantly. If it was rubbish, I wouldn't recommend it. Hopin works really, really well. And I've created a Hopin event for you guys. So if you want to dial into that, you're welcome to, and I can show you around there. And what is the minimum number of persons to make a hybrid event viable? I think that's a difficult question to answer. It depends on your budget. It depends on the production that you want. You can do some entry-level hybrid with some stuff, some cameras. For example, Kathy did one in Memphis, and that was with, they're called PTZs or PTZs, which is they're special cameras, point, tilt, zoom. And you can use those as a fairly rudimentary kind of production element. But you need to do that in combination with a virtual event platform. So AirMeet do it. We use it in combination with Hopin. That works really well. And that you can do the event in Memphis. I think you probably had about 30 or 40 people there. Kathy, I can't quite remember how many people you had. So it wasn't big numbers, but that's the beauty of virtual. You can have, you can pick a venue, you can go to Watershed in Bristol, use one of the auditoriums, and then amplify that message to 50,000 people or 10,000, or that's the beauty. The numbers, it's like a TARDIS. I can't see any other questions at the moment. Perhaps there are some in the chat. Alex.
I had a question actually for Kathy. Kathy, I was wondering, so you mentioned that when you had a fully virtual event, it was the highest delegate number that you'd had, and a lot of people and a lot of new delegates came along. How did that look with the hybrid event? Was there a drop, or did you still have a much higher number than you had for the fully virtual?
Our numbers have, they've pretty much stayed the same. They've increased. The fully virtual event was our highest attendance at that time, and then the next meeting it was just a couple more, and then the next meeting it was just a couple more. So our highest so far has been 225, but we're hoping that as we move forward with these hybrid meetings, we'll get more.
Great. And sorry, just another quick one on that. In terms of the ratio of how many like a percentage of how many would come in person, how many would be virtual, what's the kind of ratio on that?
I would say we had probably 80% in person and 20% virtual. That's about where we were.
Yeah, I think one thing, I can't remember if I mentioned it or not, one key factor is, are you going to have production, like AV production at your event? Because if you've got that, you've taken a big cost of hybridizing your event, because there's going to be cameras, vision mixers, sound engineer, and all that stuff. They're going to be there already. So that's a key consideration. If you haven't, then you've got to look at, is it worth spending the money to hybridize my event? The other big consideration is, where's your audience? If like Kathy's audience are global. Okay, if it's national, it's worth doing. If it's Bristol for Bristol community, then run it in person. Don't do a hybrid, because you don't need it. The other consideration is, accessibility. Can people afford to go there? Sorry, not access to the venue itself. That's also important. But can they afford to go there? Do they want to be there? Mental health charities, for example, sometimes they like to do it through the camera because it leaves some element of anonymity in people attending. So those kinds of things you've got to kind of consider. So it's budget, of course, is always comes into it. I'm just seeing here, we've got a few minutes left. Are there any other questions? If not, I can share in the chat the hop-in event, and you guys are welcome to register. Or in fact, shall I put my email, and people can email me if they want to, and I can walk them around the platform. If you want to, I'll put my email in the Franco, oops, events.co.uk, and that thing. And I can also, if you want to register for the event, I can get the link. I've closed everything down on my computer, so of course I haven't got the event open anymore, have I? But if you give me 2 secs, I'll be able to do that. We've got 3 minutes. Alex, I mean, I'm happy to show people quickly if you want to.
Yeah.
It's up to you. If people have got a bit of time, I'm happy to do that. Let me just go into here. There's the I've put the link for the event in the chat, demo event. I just put it together this morning, so it's anyhow, I will show you around the platform quickly now.
Franco, I can't seem to see the link. I don't know if it's been sent to everyone or to one person in particular.
Oh, sorry, did I reply directly? Sorry, I'm sorry. 1 second. Sorry, I need to share it with everyone. Sorry. Demo link. Sorry about that. Hopefully everybody should see that. And I'll go into here. So this is a hop-in. Hopefully you can all see that. And this is a hop-in platform. So you navigate the platform, different parts of it. I've put some basic information here. I just cut and paste, but you can see I've done a kind of a fake schedule here. This demo event's running for 3 days, so you can walk around the platform on your own, but probably best to let me know so I can walk you around it. You can add, like for example, I put supported as opposed to sponsored by, and I put BFG and Frog. Alex, I've put you there as a speaker, so you can see the speakers that are involved in their bios. On the main stage, there's nothing on the main stage now, but you can see I added the Q&A here. So have I run a hybrid event? Yes. I can ask my questions in here. You can upvote questions. You can mark as replied. That's kind of the engagement bit. We can see who is there. So say that I want to see, oh, Alex is there, great. I'm going to invite Alex to send a message or engage with her. So those are the kind of engagement tools. The different parts of the venue, I created a chill out lounge, a speaker room, which I've put open to everybody, like help desk, for example. This is what Kathy was referring to. So we had a help desk, a man help desk. So I can go into this help desk. I can share my audio and my camera, and then I'm in the room, and we can help delegates just like you would have a help desk in a normal event where people can come for information and support. So that can be done. Networking is great. It's a nice little function. I have put some criteria in there so you can narrow it down. For example, I want you to network with other fundraisers. I want to network with philanthropists or whatever it may be, but you can put some conditions, or you can make it randomized. So you enable your camera and then it pairs you up. Obviously, nobody else is at the event at the moment, so it won't pair me up with anybody. And then in the expo area, I created a couple of fake booths there. So here's one that I did for BFG. So that's just got some slides in it that you can load up. That's fine. You can, the call to action button I've just done as a link. So that's sent an email to Alex going, hey, Franco is interested in your booth. And then things like that. I don't know. All right. So that Vimeo link that was shared with me earlier on is a private link. So, but you could put videos in here, or people could appear on camera. And the call to action here, you see I've changed the text. And so it takes me directly to a fundraising page for St. Mungo's. So you can see that the functionality on the platform, it does all the key things, which are for people to present, to share knowledge in the breakouts, to network, to do business in the expert area, and that kind of thing. That's a kind of whistle-stop tour of the platform, but hopefully give you a little idea of, how you can use that. And of course, that can be hybridized. So for example, if you look at the schedule, I'll put some of the bits in here, that would be taking part in different parts of the venue. Hang on, let's look at tomorrow. So for example, that's for virtual and in person. And then you can say, so for the virtual people, they'll be on the screen, but for the in-person audience, it's going to take place in the main exhibition hall. So, and you can also put a map of the venue in here and that kind of stuff. So you really kind of bring both audiences as close as together as possible. But anyway, I can, there's so much more detail. Sorry, I'm just kind of flying through because of time. So happy to answer any further questions on that.
Amazing, thank you so much. Are there any, I know that we've gone over, so are there any questions before we finish up? If anyone has anything, please do raise your hands, or if there is any questions that you have, then we would be more than happy to, and you can't think of them at the moment, but you'd like to tell us later, then please email the Bristol Fundraising Group and we can send them directly to Franco. And if you're happy with us sharing your contact details, Franco's put his there now, so yeah, please get in touch and we'd be happy to help. So just to finish up, like I said earlier, our events are based on recommendations from our members. So we'll be sending out a survey. So if you could complete that, that would be great. Let us know what you thought of today's event. And also if there's anything that you would like to hear about in the future, please let us know and we will be more than happy to help with that and to try and fulfill that and get speakers on that you'd like. But I think that's everything. Thank you so much everyone for coming. Thank you, Frank.